Change is one of the most difficult things that we face, but change is inevitable. One reason we don't like change is we get comfortable where we are. We get used to our friends, our job, the place we live, and even if it's not perfect, we accept it because it's familiar. And what happens is because we're not willing to change, we get stuck in what God used to do instead of moving forward into what God is about to do.
Welcome, everybody, to the Linn County Recovery Outreach podcast, Breaking Anonymity. This is a podcast where we invite a guest on to break their own anonymity and share their story. Today we have Leslee Smith. This is my co-host, Kendrick Huffmeyer. And Leslee Smith, it's your birthday today.
It is.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thought it'd be cool to bring you on today. Thank you for coming.
No problem.
So just real quick.
Here's her cake with all the candles.
Yeah,
you
they're
know.
real cheap around here.
Yeah. But we did get her a cupcake.
Hey,
so,
we thought about it.
Yeah. So you're from here.
I am.
This is Brookfield, Missouri. So just real quick, what age did you start using drugs and alcohol?
Well, in high school, I experimented a little with drinking and smoking pot and whatnot, and never anything real heavy. And I continued on through my early 20s, but I really didn't get into anything hard until I was around 27, and even then it was just, once in a while I would use some meth. And I mean, I really liked uppers, so that was like my little, maybe twice a year treat.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was probably around 31 that I fell face first into addiction, like daily use, and had it start destroying my life.
So I guess just real simple, like what made you fall face first into it? What made you get away from that just twice a year thing, and why did you just start going ham on it?
I mean, it slowly progressed through the years. It would progress to once a month, and then it started being a weekend thing. And pretty soon, my husband, he was using daily. Several people that were close to me were using daily. I ended up being the only person going to work and raising my kids and paying my bills, and it just got to be too much. And once I started using daily, I could not stop.
See, and I like your story because, you didn't start into like active addiction until later in your life. So, and that I think is very important for people, because most of the time for me, and I believe for Kendrick too, it started at an early age. We used it in school. Mm-hmm. And my progression was quick, and so to show that at any age it affects you, and addiction is a progressive disease, and
it doesn't discriminate.
And it doesn't discriminate no matter what age you are, no matter how well off you are, no matter what part in your life you're at. It can grab a hold of you.
Right. And I mean, now being in recovery, I can look back and see that all the precursors were there for it. I just didn't actually engage in that active addiction, but I had the codependency and the mental issues and the self-esteem issues. Like, those are all precursors right there. And I'm going to say those three things probably fed into my addiction more than anything.
Well, and something that you don't really realize is about addiction, a lot of people don't realize is what makes it kind of so scary is, one, how fast it progresses. I mean, you can lose your house, your car, your kids, your wife, your husband, whatever, in a matter of months.
Right.
I mean,
for me, I start November of 2015 is when I first started using daily, and by June 1st of 2016, I was already in jail, sitting with 5 felony charges.
Wow.
It went that fast for me.
And then the second thing that's really scary about addiction is, I mean, I know that we go to schools and speak, and and I know you've gone and you know what I'm talking about, and you've gone and you know what I'm talking about, but so many kids are experimenting with drugs and alcohol because they don't realize the seriousness of the grasp that addiction can hold on you. And the thing about drugs and alcohol that you won't realize until it's too late, that you are an addict, or that you have those addictive traits and qualities. Because, I mean, we sitting here now, us in this room know that addiction isn't necessarily something that starts with, I mean, it's not just drugs and alcohol. It's something. It's a behavioral disorder. I mean, it's something that it's not necessarily a substance disorder. It's a behavioral disorder, because there's behaviors that go into making addiction, and it can manifest in many different ways. But and that's the scary part about addiction is a lot of people don't really realize that they're an addict, that they have addictive tendencies until it's too late.
Right.
And I mean, does that sound like something that you felt and happened? I mean, that you went through?
Right. I mean, if I would have started using meth at 21, that's when I would have became an addict. If I would have started using it at 15 or 40, that's when I would have became an addict, because that was my trigger. That was my drug that I just adored.
Did you have the feeling the first night you did it that you knew that was something that you were just going to battle with?
I did not. I didn't. It wasn't. I thought I had it under control until probably months into my daily use. Like, that's when I realized that I'm getting up in the morning, if I even slept the night before, and I'm using before I go to my job. And then in the bathroom at noon, I'm using again, and then I get off work, and I'm going to use, and then like 3 hours later, I'm using again. Like, it took me a while to realize this has become a problem.
Yeah.
You fed into that lie that most addicts tell themselves, oh, I can quit when I want to.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, I was responsible. I mean, I was raising my 3 kids. I had a job. I was buying a house, I owned my vehicles. Like, I was a responsible adult doing the responsible adult thing in my head. Right. But slowly, the bills started sliding, and my kids started not getting taken care of, and I fed into it more.
Right.
Well, so one question I'd like to ask is, because a lot of people that never done meth, or, part of the reason we do this podcast is let the community that doesn't understand us know where we come from. But what would cause you to have a job, kids, family, all that stuff, and still say yes to it, still do it?
By the time I realized it had been a problem, like I said, I was several months into active daily addiction. I couldn't stop. Like, don't get me wrong, I tried. Like, I would put it down for a day or two, and I maybe get 48 hours clean, but I'd always go back to it.
So you said that you were smoking pot, and did you dabble with that, or were you full blown smoking pot all the time?
No, I mean, like in high school, maybe I would smoke for a month, and I'd be like, it's not really my thing. I'd go to parties and drink and whatnot. Like, I never had a full blown addiction besides nicotine.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and then just meth was just something
That was it.
So was it something that you were maybe self-medicating with, or?
Definitely. Like I said, I had a lot of mental issues, a lot of emotional issues, a lot of emotional baggage that I didn't know how to deal with. And you did this drug, and it was like this miracle, like, and everything was okay, and I could talk about my problems and my issues. And then there was the come down,
Yeah.
Back to reality.
Right.
Pretty soon, I just got tired of coming back to reality. Like, so I just lived in this little golden cloud for months on end.
Yeah, see, that's kind of the same thing with me, just self-medicating. At one point in my life, I thought the drugs and alcohol were the answer, not the problem,
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, to an extent, when I started getting sober and everything, they just stopped doing what they used to do for me. And, now sobriety does it for me.
Right.
Yeah. So, Leslie, let me ask you this question. We've asked you a few questions about, your addiction. What have you done since you've been in recovery? I mean, we both know, but,
Right. I got out of prison in January 2017, and I entered the drug court program, and that was going to be my turning point. Either I was going to do this, or I was going to go spend the rest of my life in prison, or I was going to kill myself. Like, those were my 3 options. And Lincoln County Recovery Outreach invited me to go speak at a school. And I wasn't actually going to speak. I was just going to check it out, whatnot. And somehow, because I was the only female that showed up, I ended up there telling my story. Yeah. And, like, I'm not a public speaker. Like, this isn't my thing, really, guys.
Yeah.
But I got up there and I told my story, and I had such an outpouring from not only the people I went with who had no idea who I was, but the students. Like, I had students contact me afterwards, and, hey, what you said, it made a difference in my situation. So, I mean, that was like my turning point. Like, I can't let these people down. Like, I have a story that needs to get told, because I was ashamed. I was ashamed of everything I had done, and I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't want to go to an NA meeting and tell somebody what I had done. and you have to get over that. That's why I agreed to come on this program.
That's the stigma that needs to be broke. You know, is everybody's so scared to get sober because they're scared to admit it. They don't want to, you know, I mean, everybody knows. They see you go into the dope house. They see you go into the liquor store.
They see me lose 50 pounds in like 3 months.
Exactly. Right. So, I mean, we're just lying to ourselves. So it's us that we really need to break the stigma with, you know, so.
And especially for me, like, I was a female. I came out of prison. I'd lost my home. I'd lost my family. My kids were in foster care. My husband was in prison himself, you know, and it was hard because most of what my community remembered about me was in the police reports, you know, because I lost my kids because they were 2, 3, and 4, and they got out of my house. And I live right up the street, which right there's Monroe Street, and that's where the police found my kids playing while I was asleep because I'd been up too many days and I couldn't stay awake.
Well, and you know, something else that I'm kind of lost a train of thought there, but something else that with the whole breaking the stigma thing, you know, it's kind of one of those deals where those people don't know you. You know, the people that see this in the police reports and the yada yada whatever, the newspaper or the radio or whatever, they don't really know you, you know, and that's kind of why we want to be able to do this podcast, you know, so that way people can get to know you. Because you're a great person. I mean, you've got a great heart. You know, you do some phenomenal things. And a lot of people don't realize that. You know, a lot of people still see that person that was in the newspaper. And so with that, that's all that they have to know Leslee Smith. You know, and so it's kind of one of those situations where give them another side, you know.
And I mean, from my own personal experience, going from that person just getting out of prison to I just graduated drug court earlier this month.
Yeah.
Like
which congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah. The community outpouring on that, like people I hadn't talked to in years are like, congratulations, we are so proud of you, you know, and they want to know my story. And people ask me, you know, hey, I have this person in my life and this is what they're going through. Can you give me advice on that? Like, they reach out to me now, and that's because I haven't been, like, hiding in the shadows. Like, I put it out there. Right. When I get my kids back, hey, they're out of foster care. Let's put that on Facebook so everybody can see that it's possible.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll just real quick, when I first met you, it was the day of the Buckland School event. And here I'm meeting her, and then I asked Suzanne, I'm like, so what's the story on her? And I ask you, and you're like, I just got out of prison, and I'm like, and you're here? Like, this is awesome, because we don't see a lot of women in recovery, and when we do, we don't see them for very long. And I don't know, we can get into the debate on that, but it's a bummer, you know. So I started seeing you show up to everything, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're like, hey, well, I got my kids back, and they were in foster care. Let's do something for the foster care kids, and we put on this awesome event because of her idea, and you know, for the foster care kids of Lynn County, and that thing turned out awesome, you know, and that was your brainchild. And then now I see almost every woman at the meetings is your sponsee.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that having sponsees ain't no, you know, it ain't a joke. It's, you know, it's work.
Right,
you know?
But I'm glad that I can give back to these young women
yeah.
what somebody freely gave me when I got out.
Yeah.
Because you're right, there aren't a lot of women in recovery. And I found somebody that would listen to me and never judged me. And if I can give that back to all these young girls and women who they're just starting out, they're a month clean, like that shit's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. And you know, the funny thing about it is he mentioned whenever I met you, I think you tell the story better, but you know, I'll butcher it a little bit. You know, apparently I was sitting on your couch with somebody that is a mutual friend of all of ours, and I was smoking a blunt,
Mm-hmm.
and you walked in from work,
Yep.
and didn't want weed smoked in the house. And I didn't even know you, and you came in flying off the handles. If you guys don't know her, but man, she can get mean. She can get mean, for real mean.
That
And
is a lie.
oh, it's a lie, you know. Yeah, I plead the fifth. But anyway, and you know, I don't necessarily remember that, but I think the first time that I remember seeing you was, you know, like consciously remember seeing you was that day that you came into drug court for the first time after Because didn't you have something where you got put into drug court and then you failed a UA or something like that? And I don't mean to tell your story for you, but
No, that's
something along those lines.
When my charges were settled, I was in county, so drug court was a stipulation of my probation, which I had asked for because I knew that I needed to make a drastic change.
Yeah.
So I asked for it, and when I got out, I lasted about 6 days before I ended up using again.
See, I didn't meet you then. It wasn't until you came back.
Right. No. You met me. I went to drug court that one time, with a dirty, UA under my belt.
Oh,
And they gave me 3 days to get clean, 3 days to drop clean UA, and I couldn't do it. So they issued a warrant next drug court, and I ended up going to prison that day.
wow.
So I only made it 12 days that first time.
Yeah, see, I don't remember meeting you then, but I do remember after the fact, and since then, man, Les, you've come a long way, really, because I remember sitting in drug court with you, and to be honest with you, if it hadn't have been for you and the judge, and Suzanne and then Shane, whenever everything kind of happened the way that it did. But if it hadn't been for you guys, I probably would not have made it through drug court,
Well, I mean, when I got into drug court, I knew I had to change everything.
Yeah.
I cut everybody off. So you guys were my people. That's what I had to cling to. So, I mean, I remember having 3-hour conversations with you guys, and just that's what you got to do to get clean.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and they say that the only thing that you have to do to change is change everything.
Right.
And everything. Yep.
And the only thing you got to change is everything.
I'm glad that people from my past are starting to make it into recovery. That's really cool to see. But when I got in recovery, I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
None of the people I ran with were in trouble yet.
Yeah, and see,
within the last year, I've seen 20 people, on probation on drug court that I used to run with 1 year.
So one thing, we'll backtrack here. I've had, I got a buddy at work, and I don't think he'll mind if I mention his name, Josh. And he told me, he goes, "Oh, you know her, dude? I graduated, or I got through math because of her." So,
right.
So I guess with that story, when I heard that, I was like, so. She's, and I just want everyone to understand this, she was a good person before doing drugs.
Well, not only that, but she's a fucking smart person.
Yeah. But I mean, he's like, he said him and his wife.
Right. I sat right between them in algebra.
Yeah. And so
you played love doctor, huh?
Yeah. So I don't know. That was just something that made me think and I want everybody to understand that, we're not bad people trying to be good. We're sick people trying to be, trying to be well.
Right.
And, so I guess maybe give us some stories about, what you went through during addiction, some trials and tribulations and, and how you got to that point where you understood that you needed to change everything in your life.
All right. Well, I met my husband in 2008, I believe. And he was 9 years clean, but I didn't know that at the time. He moved out to Missouri to get clean, and he was 9 years into it. Didn't do meetings, didn't do whatever, just moved out here and quit. So we built a good life together, had good jobs. We lived down in Springfield, Missouri. We ended up getting pregnant, having a kid, and then we got pregnant again right away and ended up moving back up here. Well, in that period, that's when I had dabbled, because that was his drug of choice, and it was really fun, That was it. It was fun. That was the end of it. It was like getting drunk one night. Fun. Yeah. Don't do it again tomorrow. When we moved up here, it started getting really bad because I knew a lot of people, and a lot of people had moved towards the meth addiction.
Oh wow! Some of your old friends.
Some of my old friends, some of my old pot smoking buddies and my drinking buddies,
wow.
They had progressed in their addiction to that point. Well, my husband got really bad into it, and I kept supporting him for years. I would still dabble, every once in a while. Was he hiding it from you, or? Partially hiding it from me. He'd be like, "Hey, you want to get high this weekend?" And me not knowing, because, I'm not from that background. I don't have that background with being around people who were high all the time. I never suspected that he was literally high every day. Yeah. And by this time I had 3 kids, 3 young kids. I had a baby. he was staying home taking care of them. So, so I thought that's the reason why he wasn't going to work, because he's going to stay home and take care of the kids, and I can make more money.
Yeah.
That's just the way it was. And eventually, we got heavy into our addictions, and, we started fighting, because that's what happens. Like, relationships and addiction do not work out.
Oh, yeah.
We got physical with each other, called the cops on each other.
Wow.
And I mean, around the time that's starting to happen, that's when I'm like, man, we got to quit. Like, if we don't quit, something bad's going to happen. But you get to that point where you just can't quit.
Yeah.
Like,
even somebody as smart as you, and even, it seems like there's no out at that time.
And I mean, I would have the conscious thoughts, like I would be getting high and be like, this can't go on.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and then the next time it's like, man, I really need to quit, but
Yeah.
I don't know how.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people think is, like, well, why'd they do that? Why'd they, and then, they just got arrested, when that's the saving grace, I mean,
Yeah.
and that's what sucks, about addiction is the police are our saving grace, the court systems are our saving grace. When, I don't know, I'll go ahead and tell this story. When I first got into treatment, it was because I'd gotten busted, and they set me up with Preferred Family, and I'm sitting there going, well, the whole time I was an addict, I knew I was addicted. I knew if I didn't have it that day, I was going to feel like shit. So I was stuck in a rut, and I had to have it just to feel normal, literally, just feel the way I feel today. And so I asked Suzanne at the time, and I'm like, I think it's bullshit that I can't just walk into a place like this and seek treatment without $10,000 or $15,000. And she tells me, she goes, actually, there is government funding. You could. And I'm like, well, that shit needs to be on a fucking bulletin board, like driving down the highway. There needs to be a commercial for that instead of pathways or passages to
Passages Malibu.
I was an addict for 10 years, and now I'm not, or something I think that they should take off, and this is kind of a side note, is all the alcohol advertisements that they post all over TV, I mean, how many times in the Super Bowl alone do you see Budweiser and Michelob and, and Dos Equis and all those beer commercials, Post something about a recovery center and letting them know, getting the word out there. I mean, shout it at the rooftops like they say in, what is it, Pineapple Express? I feel like shouting it at the rooftops, I feel like a pile of flapjacks.
Well, I think that's also something we need to realize too. I seen a little clip on Facebook, and it was showing all the different, it was like Good Morning America and all these different places, all these different news shows where they're sitting there in the morning, they're like, yeah, I drank last night, and it's just, and that's the thing, like, it's normal.
That's socially
acceptable.
acceptable.
And I mean, people don't understand, that's where my addiction started. Like,
Yeah.
I might not have realized it till 15 years later, but being 16 and sneaking out of my house to go get drunk, that's where it started.
Yeah.
There's a
Alcohol is
segue.
a drug. I mean, it
Yep.
is.
Yeah, and they
It's
say
just
that the
acceptable.
weed is the gateway. Well, I say alcohol is. Alcohol was my first, and that was the first time in my life I realized, oh wow, a chemical can change
Make
my
me
mind.
happy. It makes me happy.
Exactly. And so then, well, what does this chemical do? Oh, well, what does this do? And then I was on the races. I would fight whatever.
And I feel like alcohol is kind of one of those substances it's kind of like the elephant in the room. Or any substance for that matter. It's kind of the elephant in the room. Kids find out about it. It's not that it's a secret. They know that it's there. I mean, hell, for all, I mean, I know that I went through DARE, and I've talked to you about going through DARE, and I'm almost positive that you went through DARE.
Nice.
So it's kind of one of those things where it's like it's taught in schools what it is. It's not a secret. And so when we advertise it and give it a fantasy look to it, because I know that, I mean, I'm just throwing this out there, and whenever you put sexuality into a commercial that's promoting a substance that makes you feel good, or at the time makes you feel good, that makes it something that is desirable. Yeah. And especially to young men. I mean, I don't know, I mean, women too. I mean, I don't see it from the other side of the street, so I mean, I can't really tell you, but I'm just saying though, like, you see all these beautiful women walking around at a party with a beer, and it's like, oh, that looks great, I want to do that. That's, and then you realize after it's too late that, I don't know about you, but most of the people that I saw running around at these parties after it was, too late, didn't look like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the guy at the liquor store back in the day used to always say, "You here for some social lubricant?" And that's true. It is. And you know, we've got bars, we've got clubs, we've got, you know, and all these kids like, I can't wait till I'm 21 so I can go to the club. When drugs and alcohol affect you so much that it becomes to where, for me anyway, it was, I had to have that or else I couldn't even have fun at a club.
Well,
Today I can.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and the thing with meth, the thing that hooked me so much on meth in the early days was that was my, like, I could talk to anybody about anything.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I wouldn't shut up for 3 days.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
No.
like I said earlier, I have problems in social situations, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not a public speaker. It's not something that I thought I would ever be doing.
So that helps understand why you used it.
Right.
You know?
I mean, the first time I'm like, wow, I can just talk about everything, and this is great, and my kitchen's clean, and this is awesome, you know? And I got about that speed.
So
Yeah.
you went from alcohol to marijuana, skipped over cocaine, you know, and all these other ones, and went straight to meth.
Yep.
That's
Well,
crazy.
and I think the misconception with meth is a lot of people hear it because they always think about the person that's over there, you know, cutting their grass with some scissors.
Or vacuuming the lawn.
Or
Right,
vacuuming
but I
the
mean-
lawn, or, you know, and all these horror stories. But a lot
I
of...
lived 4 years, a normal life where nobody suspected anything at all. I went to work, I paid my bills, and I took care of my kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more prominent than people will ever realize.
Well, and what I think a lot of people are, you know, misunderstanding is that, you know, hey, well, look at what they're doing on that meth over there, but here, kid, here's some Adderall. You know, and it's like, hey, that's pretty much the same thing. Like, as long as, you know, it's just the dose that they're doing. And I've always said this, you know, to the kids at schools or whatever, you know, to anybody who's asking about meth, you know, you're counting on them, you know, the person to cook your drug that I wouldn't want making me dinner.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's...
But I mean, in active addiction, you ain't thinking like that.
Exactly.
I did things in active addiction that I never would do sober, you know?
Well, and something else, I mean, you got to think about with what you just said, how many people you watch die from their addiction, you know, and you know, we've focused a lot on meth here, but a lot of drugs can cause you to die.
Right.
You know, the same people that are making your meth, you know, the same kind of people that are making your heroin, or the same type of people that are whipping up your crack, or, you know,
Well,
your cocaine, or...
It's like I was talking earlier. Yesterday, you know, I'm at the softball game, and I came to realize I'd had my kids back for a year. Like, they were in my custody for a year.
That is awesome.
You know, so the year before, I got my kids back. The year before that, the day before my birthday, I was trying to make my heart explode by, you know, doing an overdose of meth, which is a lot of meth.
Yeah.
Like, I got to that point. Like, I didn't care. So, I mean, if you want to see the turnaround, there's 2 years ago, I was half a block down trying to make my heart blow up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I didn't have enough courage to actually kill myself. But if it happened kind of thing.
So let's go through your story a little bit. So you failed your UAs and everything and went to prison.
Yes.
Now, so what do you think of prison treatment?
Prison treatment is very intense.
Yeah.
But I will honestly say it's probably the thing I needed.
Really?
I couldn't get sober on my own. You know, I couldn't get sober doing 30 days in jail where there was no treatment.
Yeah.
Okay, so I go in here and they're like, hey, this is not treatment for drugs. This is behavior modification. Let's change the way you're looking at your life.
And that helped you.
It really did, because I was looking at my life through like these horrible goggles, like, hey, my life sucks so bad and I'm this horrible person, when really I need to be looking at it in a more positive manner.
Yeah.
You know, and realizing what my character flaws were and working on them made me the person I am today.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people aren't going to get what I'm going to ask here, but did you ever get encountered?
Yes, I did actually.
All right. Well, encountered is, explain it. real
Okay,
quick.
so the encounter is if Dustin did something that offended or made me mad or was something against what I wanted or I thought was wrong or bad for the community, which is what treatment is, it's a community, I would take him to the encounter circle where I would say, Dustin, this is what you did, this is how it made me feel, and he would have the chance to like respond back to that. And then people could be pulled in and, hey, Dustin, you're doing this. Like, it's supposed to help him learn about his character defects, you know, so.
So did it help?
I got encountered on the way out, and she was just trying to phase up, so it
Really?
really didn't help me much, but.
Did you cry?
No, I did not cry.
You didn't cry.
No.
You didn't
Well, I was
break down that wall.
I
huh?
was an encounter master, so I was used to being in the encounter circle. So, I mean, I kind of knew what to go with.
Yeah, that's
I knew
cool.
exactly what was going on when she called me up there. So
That's cool. So then when, you know, I got sober here in Brookfield and thousands of miles away from my original home and my original drug friends and everything. So I had a little bit of a benefit from that. But, I mean, I did use with some people in, you know, in this town. But what was it like coming back out, and how did you get through the telling those friends to kind of keep clear or get sober with you?
say it was really hard for me because I was a very codependent person, like, and I thought these were my friends, like, and so I had to train
Ride or
myself.
die homies.
Right, ride or
Yeah.
die. They ain't never gonna
A1 day one.
Right, they ain't never gonna do me wrong.
Yeah.
And so I moved in with my grandparents. They live outside of town. I didn't have I got out of prison with a pair of flip-flops. I had a pair of Viva slides. That's the only thing I owned when I got out of prison. So, I mean, I didn't have anything. I didn't have a job, you know, nothing, no vehicle. So I was kind of secluded. I secluded myself. You know, I had access to the internet, so hey, I could message them once in a while when they message me. Yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to a meeting. But it was hard, and that's why I did clean to you guys in the beginning. Like, you got to have that support group, and I happened to find probably the best support group for me. You know, people that understood me and, like, understood if I'm going to call you at 1 o'clock in the morning, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And so, I guess, you know, so AA and NA helped you.
Yeah.
Encounter Recovery Outreach.
Right.
You know, and you were in drug court. So
Right.
explain a little bit about what drug court is, the phases and everything.
Treatment court is an intense treatment program.
Whoa.
That's your match, everybody.
It's an intense treatment program.
Caught
Okay.
me off guard.
So when I got out of prison, I actually took the program serious. There's 4 phases. I was lucky enough to get into the 18-month program instead of the 13-month program,
Whoop whoop.
which I completed in 16 months.
Hell
Whoop,
yes.
But so phase 1, they make you go see your counselor once a week. You go to 2-3 groups a week, and you're required to do 2 NAA 12-step meetings, whatever your flavor of the meeting is.
I thought it was like 3 or 4.
It's 2. It's always 2.
It's always
throughout
been
it.
2. You went
Yeah.
through drug court. Come on.
Yeah.
It was 2 when I went through it, too.
Right, and I mean during that phase,
You went through the 13-month program.
And did it in 27.
Anyway,
Whoop whoop.
during that phase, I didn't have a job, so I ended up going to, I think, 57 meetings and groups my first month out. Like, I was
Wow.
at a meeting or a group twice a day.
Awesome.
So I mean, that's what I had to do. I had to do something extreme, you know. And then you get into phase 2, and they ease up a little bit on you. It's one group a week, and your 2 meetings, and see your counselor and your PO twice a week, and of course you go to drug court. Phase 1 every week, phase 2 every other week.
And you talk to the judge.
You talk to the judge. He gives you a writing assignment. You know, they assess how you're doing. If you're doing well, they give you your attaboy. If you're doing poorly, then
And
You're
you're
gonna
doing all of this while holding down a 40-hour-a-week job.
while holding down a 72-hour-a-week job,
Well,
because I work 7 days a week at
They
this time.
require a 40-hour-a-week
Right.
job. So
If you don't do your 40-hour-a-week job, then you have to do 40
20
hours
hours
a week.
of-
40 hours a week of community service now.
now
Wow.
it's 40
Yeah.
hours? Wow.
So what's some stuff that you learned about yourself through that? Because I know the one-on-ones, I know the groups. What's some of the stuff that helped you?
See, my biggest character flaw was probably my self-esteem. Like, I came out of prison. You don't have self-esteem when you come out of prison. You don't have self-esteem when you get into this program. Like, that's something you got to work on. And I had to realize that I'm not that horrible person. That I have things to offer other people. That the world would not be a better place if I wasn't in it.
Yeah.
And those were my first demons I had to conquer right there.
Well, and something else
That's
is,
awesome.
you don't have self-esteem when you're coming out of an addiction.
That's true.
So
That's part of the reason that we used.
Right.
So I noticed that, I was at your graduation, and it was huge.
Yeah.
And, one of the biggest I've ever seen, one of the most heartfelt ones,
Yeah.
That's why I think it's important to have you on here and have you in our group and with us at schools and everything is because you're a huge help for the women, for even the men. I watch the men go to you for help.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Kendrick, you helped Kendrick.
Yeah.
Right. I actually
You
have two
still
male
help me.
sponsees because they relate better to me than they do any
That's
of you
awesome.
guys. Like, and that's I know that's not traditional or whatever, and I have a male sponsor.
Yeah,
Like, at
and,
this
and I
point,
think
that's-
it's partly your no bullshit attitude,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's what a lot of us need.
Right.
You
If
know?
I'm your sponsor, I'm probably going to make you cry early in recovery. Because I learned early on, if you said something that made me mad, like I need to sit there and look at that because that's probably something I need to work on.
Yeah.
Like if somebody says something and you're mad about it, take a step
There's-
back and
there's
look at
probably
yourself.
some
There's probably
truth
something there.
behind
Yep.
it,
Truth
yeah.
hurts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You don't get mad if it doesn't apply to you.
Yeah. So, but one thing I've noticed since your graduation and everything that, you know, is that you're still doing everything that
Yeah.
you had to do with drug court.
Why
you
would
know?
Why would I change something? My counselor asked me what I was going to do when drug court was over, and I stopped and I thought, and I'm like, I'm going to keep doing everything I'm doing now, except I'm just not going to show up to drug court anymore.
Right.
And I think that's when you know the program worked for you.
Yeah.
Well, hell, if something works, why fix
Right.
it? Yeah, that's
My first
you know.
week out of drug court, I went to a meeting every night because even this far into it, I don't trust myself enough to have that thumb be lifted off. So I'm going to do what I know to do to keep sober.
Well, see, and that's that thing that I had kind of mentioned earlier is about the addiction thing, you know. You don't realize that it's a disease until you get clean. You know, so many, like I said, so many people try to blame it on their use on it. It's a disease. It's a disease. Well, you haven't even really felt the disease yet. Like, and that's, you know, you can't trust yourself because you yourself know what you're capable of. And
Right.
that's the scary part.
It's just
You know?
everybody's hope that once they get out of the drug court program or this far into recovery, that they've built that network of people they can rely on, because that's what gets you through.
Yep.
Like, and it doesn't even have to be, hey Dustin, this is what I'm going through. It could be like, hey Dustin, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Talk to me
Yeah.
for a few minutes. And
Yeah.
it's not even that intense. Like, hey, just get my mind off
Yep.
whatever crappy thought I have
Yeah.
going through my head. You guys have helped me and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
I can just be like, hey, what's up?
Yeah, and that's what it takes. It's a community. It's
Right.
I mean, what was
Yeah.
that whole thing about
lollipop?
No, the thing about the rats. The
Oh.
About the rat
test that-
village.
yeah, about
Yeah.
back in the day they tested rats.
They
with-
tested them with heroin in the water.
Well, it was cocaine,
Cocaine.
and then they changed it to heroin.
Yep. And then they had them in a little cage, so all these rats were given the choice of the drug-infected water or clean water, and all of them chose the drug-infected
while
water.
they were by themselves.
While
I
they were
wanna
by
point that out.
themselves.
In a 1-by-1 cage.
Right.
Yeah, and so they had nothing to do, and so the rat would always go back to the opiate
Right.
water or the coke water or whatever, and until he killed himself.
Right.
Yep.
And then they
They
put
built
them-
this
yes.
rat utopia where they had slides and they had interaction with the opposite
Yeah.
sex of rats, and they could do what they wanted, and
Yeah.
only 10% of them went back to the addictive water.
Yeah,
Well,
they'd go and try it, and then they'd come back like, I don't like that because I got shit to do.
Right.
Well-
and that's what we do in recovery. That was our whole basis upon Lake County Recovery Outreach, our
Yeah.
events,
Building better communities through living
through
examples.
living
Yeah.
examples. Boom.
Exactly.
So, I mean, one thing I've noticed in addiction and in recovery is that, I've been in recovery for a while now. The addiction just doesn't go away. It manifests in another way.
Yeah.
I get addicted to looking at my screen on Facebook, and I get addicted to these nonprofit organizations. I get
Right.
addicted to, and I try to find healthier manners because I am an addict through and through. So what is some of the stuff that helps you notice that and keep it in a healthy manner?
Right. I mean, I'm a phone addict. I'm a Facebook junkie. I really am.
Yeah.
So if I look at the clock and it's been an hour and I've been on Facebook, like, it's time to get up and do something with the kids.
Yeah.
I dive into caffeine really hardcore. Like I said, I like uppers.
Yeah.
So I got to make sure I limit myself to that one coffee in the morning, and I'm not going to get a Monster out of the machine because,
You guys have monsters in your
we
machine?
have Monsters in our machine.
That's no fair. Man.
They're like $2.50. Big can.
Wow.
But,
The BFC or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, I do put a lot of, I'm an extremely busy person. I keep myself extremely busy.
Yeah.
There's something I'm doing every night, whether it's something I'm doing with my kids, something I'm doing through LC Row, through NA. I just got done doing a group conscience meeting.
Yeah.
I rushed over here from group conscience to do this podcast. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's my Sunday afternoon all filled up,
Yeah.
you know,
And that's on your birthday.
on my
That's-
birthday.
And I think the biggest misconception is we even look at ourselves as we were selfish people, you know, and the community looks at us that way, like they weren't doing nothing for our community, weren't doing nothing for their family, weren't doing nothing, you know, just for themselves. They were just, you know, and I think the biggest misconception with that is the drugs tricked us into thinking that we were better people while, you know, that we were, because we felt good, so we obviously were doing good. Well, that was a lie, but we're not. We are selfish to an extent, but I mean, look at everything you're doing for other people.
Well, in my addiction, I wasn't out there robbing people, and I wasn't out there doing the big crimes that, you know, people associate with addicts, you know, out there rummaging through somebody's house trying to find, you know, their jewelry box. I isolated. You know, I used to work in a nursing home, and I was very good at that job, and I let my licensing lapse. You know, I didn't go see my grandparents who have supported me from day one, like pre-addiction, through all the domestic violence, through prison. They let me move in with them, you know. They trusted me. I didn't go see them for over almost 6 months, like my entire addiction, because I went out there on Thanksgiving, the day I decided to go off the deep end, and my grandma was like, "You've lost a lot of weight," because I'd been picking up the amount of usage, so I was starting to lose weight, and I'm like, she knows. And I cut them out. So I isolated from everybody. And so I don't have a lot of direct amends to make to people, but I do have a lot of living amends that I need to make because I took myself out of life. Like, I decided to go live in a vacuum, which you can't do.
And explain a little bit about what a living amends is.
A living amends is like how, I show up at every community service event just so I can get back to my community because of the things that I did in my addiction that I can't make a direct payment for. I can't be like, okay, I did this to you, how am I going to make this better? I can be like, my community, I did a lot of horrible things to you, so I'm going to go out here and I'm going to pick up trash on Main Street, or I'm going to plant flower beds, or whatever it takes to be able to
give back. And that's awesome. You know, and that's not selfish. You know, that's, you know, but a living amends is really cool, you know. But, so what, no, I just lost my train of thought on what I was going to ask you. Kendrick, you want to take over on that one?
Sure. Let's see. We've talked about your drug court. We've talked about, so when in doing these things, I mean, it's clear that you're kind of a motivation to others, you know. I mean, it's, you know, to be completely honest with you, I mean, you've motivated me a lot, you know. I mean, there's been times where, I'm going to be for real with you, you call me on my bullshit sometimes, and that's what you need to hear. And I mean, you know, my sponsor, man, he doesn't ever do it. No, he does. He's good at it too.
Softy.
Yeah, he's a good guy though. But no, I mean, the thing about it is like, we talked about how you kind of have that no bullshit attitude, and you know, and it's kind of crazy. We kind of also talked about how you have watched people that you know, knew and kind of wish would get into recovery, and the cool thing about it is, you know, I've watched you help people that I used to get high with, and people that I used to, you know, run around with all the time, and you've helped them tremendously. And I mean, for that, I thank you, you know, because there's been times where I've prayed like, hey, you know, I just pray the best for this person, you know, and ultimately they have to make the decision, but you have been a big part in that. And so with that being said, you know, those living amends that you make every day, you know, you do those and you don't even realize it, you know. And that's kind of why I mentioned the lollipop earlier, and people are probably like, what is he talking about? Well, a lollipop, and I don't know if I've ever told you this or not. Have I?
I don't think so.
No? Well, okay, so let me tell you about this real quick, and because I'm segueing into something. So the lollipop story kind of goes along this line. There's a guy that was in college, and he, you know, was campaigning for somebody to student council or whatever, and it was the first day of enrollment or something like that, or, you know, like the new students getting on campus, and there's a line of people outside the enrollment office, and he's going down the line handing out lollipops for, you know, this whatever. And so he gets to this girl, and, you know, she's new, freshman at the university, and she's new, and he sees her, and he kind of stops, and he looks at her. He looks at the guy in front of her because he notices the guy in front of her is kind of looking back at her thinking like, oh, whatever. So he skips her and he says, hey, you should hand this lollipop to this girl behind you. And so he goes on about his way. Well, 4 years later, this girl is getting ready to graduate. He's going on to get his master's. She's getting her bachelor's or whatever. And needless to say, she comes running up to him and says, hey, I just wanted to stop and thank you. I know that you don't know me. We never really hung out. And, you probably don't even remember me. But I'm that girl that you stopped and skipped in the line and handed the lollipop to the guy in front of me. I just wanted to let you know that guy that you handed the lollipop in front of me actually is now my fiance. We're set to be married in a month or however long. And because of that, I actually finished out going to college. She was like, I was standing there at that moment in time talking to my parents about how I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can make it through this, and the gist of the story is that you don't realize who you're handing a lollipop to sometimes. Sometimes it's not, you will never find out. And I can personally say that, you've handed me some lollipops. And you hand people lollipops all the time in town. And when I say this, I mean it in a metaphorical sense, obviously. But maybe not. I don't know what you do with your spare time.
She's throwing them at the
kids.
parade.
Yeah, at the kids. But the reason I'm saying this is because, it's cool to see how far you've actually come, and that you have those lollipops to hand out, and sometimes you don't even realize it.
Sometimes we don't know the seeds that we
plant. And with that, do you ever get to the point where you become, and you kind of notice yourself getting overly confident, and have to step back and say, whoa? Do you ever get to that point? And if you do, how do you stop yourself from doing that?
I don't say I've ever gotten really overconfident, but I have gotten myself overwhelmed. Like maybe I get a little cocky by how much I can take on, and I have to step back. And I have several people in my life that specifically know, like I can just be like, hey, I'm having a bad day. I feel like I'm starting to get batty in. And they know, like that's all I have to say. Because it's hard to talk about when you get to that point where you're overwhelmed and you're having those thoughts. Like I also battle with mental illness. So, I mean, getting overwhelmed is not good for me. So I've put in place where I can just be like, hey, buddy, I'm getting overwhelmed again. I'm starting to get bad again. And I've got people that are there for me. Like, it's really cool.
Yeah. So I think I remembered what question. And it's kind of because I know it's a touchy subject for you. And we've kind of had a debate about this. But just to let the community, understand, I know with the way that things went with your kids, that's something that really affects you, and you're really bothered by the way that you feel the community thought of that, because you had given a little example of what happened that day. So if we could just go into that and explain that a little bit, and explain, maybe what happened that day, maybe where you were coming from.
And if it made you go further, or you get what I'm saying.
Right. Well, what had happened was I was working overnights at a place, and I'd gotten off at 9 o'clock that morning, and I'd been up for quite a few days. And I had told my husband, look, I've got to get some sleep. We have 3 kids. My oldest was 3.5 at the time. My youngest wasn't even 2. So we had 3 real young kids that can't be left unsupervised. I'm like, I need you to watch the kids so I can get some sleep. Because at that point, I was still trying to do the responsible thing. Yeah. Like, my addiction was getting bad.
As best you could, yeah.
As best I could. My addiction was getting bad. Like, I was getting to the point where I would call into work every once in a while, or I'd be late, and this or that, And I ended up falling asleep, and he left. He went to make a run. Didn't tell me. Well, my children got out the back door. It was unlocked. And they found him on Monroe Street. I believe someone called the cops. Yeah. And the police had to come to my house because my 2 older children ran back to the house. My younger one didn't. So they brought him back. And they actually had to come into my house and wake me up because children were involved. So they came into my house, woke me up, and they're like, well, DFS will be informed, and they'll probably be here within a couple days. So I got a hold of my husband, and he came back. And DFS showed up 33 minutes after the cops left. Won a UA. So, of course, I couldn't drop clean at the time. I wasn't clean. And while we were sitting in the bathroom, like I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do, and I can't pee, sorry. they found a couple bags of dope. So they told me I need to call someone to come get the kids. And my grandparents came and picked him up and took him home. It's the last time I seen him for almost a year.
Wow.
Wow.
And they arrested me and my husband. We sat in county for a couple weeks before they put us out on a no-R bond. And when we got out, we tried. We really did try not to use. We used a few times. We went to court July 25th of that year, and the judge put a no-contact order. I couldn't even call my kids anymore. And that's pretty much when I went off the deep end.
Yeah.
From July 25th to the end of August, that's when I was like, I don't want to do this. Because I was in this vicious cycle of, I can't use drugs because I need to see my kids, but I can't see my kids, so I'm going to use drugs to make myself feel better. And I mean, it literally snowballed for almost 6 weeks. Like, it is the most vicious cycle I've ever been in, and the longer it snowballed, the more I started using, the less grip I had on reality. Like, I quit my job. I was living in a house with no electricity, no water, just trying to figure out how I was going to get high.
Yeah.
Right.
See, and I've always said this, that, I think it's wrong that they take kids away from addicts, because I understand where the community thinks that, because there was an example, a friend of mine from high school, good dude, and I see this Facebook post that's from the Lewiston Tribune, and they had fallen asleep and let their baby lay on the floor. And I'm sitting there, normal people, when they read this, they're like, oh, those pieces of shit. And I'm sitting there thinking, I know he's not a piece of shit, man. I know he's a good person. I know this guy. I don't know her, but I know him. And, it's just the way people think. But taking the kids away, I've always thought is like, well, now I got nothing to live for. Now you guys got my kids living in a foster care, and we are on our 10-minute mark. So, but I want to finish this. I do think it's wrong. I mean, in your case, it helped. It was your driving force, right?
I mean, for a while there, it was the thing that made me get worse. When they took away me even being able to call, because, all right, a little bit of background on me, I didn't think I could have kids for several years. Yeah. I didn't have my first child until I was 27. So, I mean, they were everything to me. And the addiction, that's how powerful the addiction was. Like, I could not quit for my kids. Like, if that tells you anything, if you know me as a person at all, you know how, like, just mind-blowing that is.
So that's how strong addiction is.
And, I mean, I held on. I got, I could get, like, 36 hours clean or 48 hours clean in between getting out of jail and going before the judge. And I was actually clean when I went before the judge. And it was just a blanket. No contact with your children. Yeah. And that's when I lost it. Like, I think I would have been okay, and I think I would have struggled through it if I still was able to call them every day. Yeah. Like, but the whole no contact order is what.
See, and sometimes I think maybe the kid should be allowed to go to treatment with you. I wish that instead of prison, our other option was treatment, and kind of like the way that Portugal's doing it.
Right.
But we live in America, and it does a little different, and there's the war on drugs. But
and that's kind of why we're doing this podcast.
I hope that people watch this podcast and realize what type of person you are, what you're doing now. That it wasn't something that you're like, oh, I just I was a shitty parent and that just happened. No, that was just something that happened, and maybe it was meant to happen. Because look at you today.
And I mean, honestly, the situation, it could have been explained away by I was just tired and I fell asleep, and there didn't have to be a drug use in there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't actually think the cops thought I was going to drop dirty. Like, I really don't. Yeah. Like, they were as surprised as me, or surprised as everybody else, that they had to arrest me.
Well, and I'll let you know that I think you're wrong about thinking the community thinks that way of you, because I've never heard any bad stuff about you. Most of them are like, what, she was on drugs? Like, what I mean?
Right. I mean, and I was, like I hid that. Like, I hid it very well, and I was very visible in the community. Yeah. And it was literally just those few short months between June and September, like, that I was really bad and out there and doing what I shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah.
Well, and something that a lot of people don't realize is that sometimes the worst part of your past is the best asset that you have. And in your case, I'm not saying that it's the best asset you have, but in your case, it's definitely a helping hand, because I've watched you inspire a lot of people. You
And I
inspire
mean-
me to this day. So
That's the whole reason I came on here, is because when I first got into recovery, there weren't the women out there.
Yep.
There was this horrible stigma. I know we've argued back and forth on it, but it'll almost break your heart being a woman in recovery because of how you're viewed.
Yep.
Because you know, you're a mother first, and then you lost your kids, and you couldn't get clean, and I mean, it's just a snowball. Like, it's embarrassing. So I mean, I will do anything in my power. I'll talk to anybody that needs it
We
to get
thank
them
you for
through
that.
this.
yeah.
I mean, you're what the community needs, you know, and I
Absolutely.
hope everybody does see you in a different light, and I hope this does help, you know. And I mean, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
You know, I am.
Yeah.
So you're
I'm-
now the secretary of
I
Lynn
am the
County Recovery
secretary.
Outreach.
Yes, I am.
Yep.
Whoop,
So
whoop.
now I get to call you every Sunday night and make a. Actually, right after this podcast, we need to make an agenda.
Yes.
So why don't we tell a little bit about when our meeting is? We have one tomorrow at God's Garden Church.
Right, it's 6 p.m. open meeting. You know, bring your kids. My kids come, so they've got someone to play with,
Yeah.
and come and share in like this amazing thing that has just snowballed into. It's just the most amazing thing ever,
Yeah.
really, because it started as something small, like, hey, we need something to do, that's turned into here, Lynn County.
Here we have too much to do.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, here, Lynn County, this is all the stuff we want to give you, whether you
Yeah.
like it or not. Here it is.
Yeah.
So I
But
mean,
the community's been, more than accepting.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
been cool.
so, and I mean, anybody's welcome. You don't have to be an addict. I mean, you just want to stop by and see what we're all about. Please come, because
It's usually every other Monday.
we're
Join
going-
us on Facebook, Lynn County Recovery Outreach.
for a while we're going to be doing weekly meetings, I
Yes,
believe.
for
So,
the 5K.
Right.
So we are having a 5K event. It will be in Laclede. It will be September 15th
15th. The run's
at
going to
8
start
in the morning.
The community village is going to open 8 to noon, and we're going to have a bunch of community resources there. They're going to hand out different paperworks and stuff that they do for our community, you know. And then I think the run's going to be at 8:30.
Yes.
8:30 they're going to
8:30?
run.
Okay.
Some along those lines. Just show
Yep.
up at 8.
And it'll
And
be
then-
25 if you pre-register, and 30
At the gate.
At the gate, and 5 if you want to walk it. And all proceeds go to our organization, which pays for resource material, pays for us to get back and forth for these schools. It pays for us
Literature
to buy
that we hand out.
literature that we hand out. It pays for
And it
I mean,
also
all
helps-
of it. None of it goes to anybody. We are nonprofit, and we
We don't
hold
make
on
a
to that.
dollar. We don't make
No.
a dime. We don't make a penny from doing
Yes.
this. But something that else that I think needs to be all the money that we get helps go into events that we do,
Right.
such as the
So-
softball game that was yesterday.
Bowling.
bowling.
We've done kickball, barbecues, swim parties.
Yeah.
Like that was our main passion when we started this. You know, let's get things out there that are PNP approved for addicts and people in recovery to come together and realize there is a better way to
Yep.
live.
And then 2 weeks prior to the 5K, I'm tired. 2 weeks prior to the 5K, we will be parking people at the Pershing Days.
Balloon Derby.
Balloon Derby.
Yep, and I think we're gonna try and set a booth up out there, maybe sell some
Yes.
T-shirts. So
Yeah.
if you like the T-shirts we have,
Yeah.
Which we're not, none of us
None
are
of us
really
are wearing
sporting them. You know, but it's a beautiful blue with
Right.
a butterfly and
We might have a new shirt too.
Yeah.
We've got to vote that in tomorrow.
Right.
So
Yeah.
hopefully you'll see that on Facebook. Please join us on Facebook. See everything that we're doing. You can comment on there, ask us whatever. If you got any ideas, throw them out there. If you
Right.
want to be on the podcast, you want to share your story, get a hold of us.
if you need to talk to somebody, you can contact any of us through
Any of
Facebook.
us.
I mean, we are always there for you.
Yep.
It might take us a while to, we're responsible adults now. We all have jobs, but we will get back to you.
Yes.
Even
Yep.
if it's just a question that you want answered about addiction.
Yes. You don't need to fight this alone. There are people out there.
And there is ways to change. Change is difficult. Change is something that's necessary, but it's always difficult. And you can find all of us on Facebook. So my name's Kinder Kuffmeyer, and this is.
Dustin Sabosi.
And I'm Leslie Smith.
Thank you for watching LCRO's Breaking Anonymity. Have a great night.